We've been using Homebot for a while now, and the amount of activities that we are seeing from Homebot is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
But then that made me think, well, I really need to put that out there in the Homebot world. How did you get into the Homebot community?
So, because I am super analytical,
Yeah.
I only got into the Homebot community because I was looking up ways to how can I provide other benefits and things that other realtors aren't using. And Homebot kept popping up too. And so when I came across, a few realtors having success with it, not in Texas, in other markets, and I was like, well, who is offering Homebot? So then I reached out to my lenders and I asked them if they were doing Homebot, and none of them were doing Homebot. And so I was like, I got to figure out how to get Homebot and how to see what it is, because all I can see is from the website. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. It shows you, number one, it's good for them to know when to refi their houses, like having to explain this to people, right? It's like, well, should you sell or should you actually refi if you're having a difficult time, right? With something, or you want to lower your price point or something. So I'm like, you can totally do a refi right now. And guess what? If you have enough equity in the home, you may not even have to pay for the refi. You can roll it right in, right? And then you can take a steady plan and say, okay, now I'm going to do this. Or they need to cash out because they want to do a remodel or something to get the house ready for sale. So I'm explaining all of this to people, but I'm like, oh.
Yeah. And every one of those are such great touch points. So I've got a couple of realtors that use Homebot really the way it should be used. And I did a Zoom interview with them when COVID hit, I went to Zoom for everything and started holding lunch and learns that way. And they were explaining the different ways that they use Homebot in their real estate business. And there's, just like anything else, it's a tool, and it's available for you to figure out how it's best to use for you and your business, knowing that first you got to just get in, and then you can figure out how you really want to use it, and then you can keep adding to it. So but the story with Homebot for us as a company, we service our loans. We've been in business since the 60s. So, servicing portfolio is just part of the asset and the value add for us.
Oh, I didn't know.
So Guild was introduced to Homebot because Homebot started by a real estate agent in the Denver area. And Ernie, who started Homebot, was friends with some of the loan officers in the Denver area, because we've got a pretty big presence in Denver, California, and then the Portland, Seattle area. And so several of the loan officers had started using Homebot, and the engagement and the return was just huge. And so one of my friends had picked up the phone and called our CEO and said, hey, you've got to check this out. It is worth a trip for you to come check this out. Because of course, back then we weren't using Zoom like we are now.
Yeah.
So they ended up, because of the value that it brings and because of the retention, Guild provides it for the loan officers, the basic level, to every loan officer, because it ties our database of customers back to us from a servicing level.
Right.
So it has increased the bottom line for Guild as a company enough within the first little period of time that they rolled it out to every loan officer, and they're paying our subscription.
Oh, wow.
That's how beneficial it is.
Wow.
But I still, Guild's we really pride ourselves in high tech, high touch. So we still have the personalized, what feels like the boutique branch mortgage experience, but we fund a couple $2 billion a month. So, we're a large company, but it doesn't feel that way. So we have a lot of technology that's available to us like that. And so I'm like, yeah, okay, it's just something else I got to figure out. Well, so one of my friends who's a loan officer that had Homebot, she's like, let me just sign you up as a consumer so you can see what your customers would receive. And like by month 3, I was like, oh my gosh, I look forward to getting my Homebot report.
Yeah.
And that's how I sold it to my realtor partners that are using it. I've done their mortgage loans. And so I never say anything to them about Homebot, but then they start receiving the Homebot and they're like, holy cow, this is some really great information. And I'm a realtor. I know what the property value of my home is.
Right.
But it's showing me every single month. And for a while, they would validate that information. Well, you know as well as I do, this is all computer driven values. And
Right.
so they're not always going to be spot on, but it's just like monitoring your credit scores.
Exactly.
You're monitoring your credit scores, not because that exact score is going to be the same anywhere you go, but it still is a lead indicator that something has changed and gives you the opportunity to research and see what has changed to change the number. So it's just a conversation starter, but that's just the beginning.